Okay, recording and transcription are started. um, like usual, before I start with the module that we're going to do today, reseller management, I think it will take about 3 hours for this session. But before I start the new module, is there anything that you want me to clarify, to explain? Do you have any questions about topics that we covered before? If not, let's keep it as we did before. Give me a thumbs up if you don't have questions. Thanks. All right. Okay. So let's start with reseller management. Reseller management is, let's say, the module about the structure, why we have resellers in the first place. But the last part will be about how to create a new reseller. As you've seen before, there is no button when you go to resellers, not in operations, not in billing, that says add new reseller. For us, a reseller is a customer on steroids. A customer that has the privilege and the right to resell products that he buys from his layer up. That is the whole idea of a reseller, in short. So we're going through the process of, and I would almost say from scratch, to build a new reseller. I prepared a couple of users already, a couple of customers already, so we don't have to wait for that to happen, but I'll explain when we're there. But let's look at reseller management in general first. So what are we going to look at? Of course, we're going to talk about the reseller concepts. How does it work with the money flow? How does it work with what types of resellers we have? How would it work, etc., etc. The next thing is reseller control panels. We already covered most of that, so I'm not going into that in very much detail. I'm going to quickly do a recap of that module. And then we're going to look at, I would almost say, part 4 and part 5 are, I would say, the key things for this module. Reseller operations. What can a reseller do? What can he not do? And part 5 is onboarding a reseller. How are you going to onboard a reseller? What are the steps needed? What are the things needed to onboard a new reseller? And the last part is a little bit about, okay, and now we have a reseller on board. What can you do? What are the things that are necessary to keep up to date, and how do you do that? So the first thing we look at is reseller concepts. And we start with maybe a weird picture from this perspective, but let me explain why. Most of you use probably power strips. Power strips are those extension cords with multiple possible places to plug in a device. Why are we using them? It's an affordable way to expand the number of electrical outlets in your home or in your workplace. And eventually, there are also smart power strips that might help you save money on the electric bill by turning off devices or turning off power consumption when those devices are not in use. And if there is a power surge, they might even keep your devices protected. So why is this an analogy? Well, it's an analogy with a distribution network. A distribution network that allows a wider customer reach because it will ideally speed up the process of delivering products to the end user and increase opportunities to reach other markets. In other words, the power strip that is plugged into the wall socket. The wall socket is the provider that is supplying the power for all the resellers. The resellers are the spots in that power strip. It's a simple analogy that we want to look further into. What is important at this moment is that, or why is reseller scenarios, why are reseller scenarios important? Because nowadays we are looking more and more into a subscription-based business model. Subscription-based business model means that you take a subscription for a month, for a year, for 3 years, whatever, and during that time, you can consume the specific service, whether it's Netflix, whether it's Apple Music, Spotify. We have a couple here on screen. And the thing is that if you look at the SaaS model, we see Microsoft there, we see Adobe there, and we also see CloudBlue there. There are a couple of things, of course, to look into. I think that for Microsoft, it's pretty clear. You have your subscription to Microsoft 365. You consume that. For Adobe, they have the Adobe VIP subscriptions nowadays. Adobe is also fully into subscriptions now. You don't buy Adobe anymore, you subscribe to it. But what does CloudBlue do there? Well, there are two reasons why CloudBlue is there. The first one is because we facilitate it. We facilitate it with all our CloudBlue commerce platforms across the globe, where we enable providers as well as resellers to sell software as a service subscriptions. But we also are actually a SaaS provider ourselves, because when you are a small or medium size distributor and you want to make use of a powerful platform like CloudBlue Commerce is, you might not have the money though because of your size to purchase an on-prem platform. We are offering that platform now in a SaaS model as well. You won't be the owner of the platform. You will act as an L1 distributor instead of the L0 as you guys are. You have a platform in your own data center. You're L0. You might have resellers on it, resellers as in different countries, as in opcos. But CloudBlue is supporting a SaaS model as well nowadays. The thing is that when we look at subscription-based business models, not only when we talk about services, we talk about subscription businesses, but in this case, when you are on top of a platform, being a reseller is also a subscription. Because you, I would almost say, purchase the right to resell services. Purchase the right as in, I'm buying a product, a service plan that allows me to start reselling services. And that is exactly why we say that a reseller is a customer on steroids. It's basically a customer that purchased a very specific subscription. But that also means that if I look at the reseller's environment, you will see that there is an order for becoming a reseller. And as you see here, I could even decide to have, let's say, my to-be reseller. I could have that entity to pay a bill for each month. For instance, for all the support you're offering to him, for all the work you're doing to keep the platform up and running. That is, well, let's say it's a possibility. We see that it hardly happens, but from a technical perspective, it is possible. What most reseller relationships are, let's say, revenue shares. Meaning that if that reseller is successful, they sell a lot of services, they sell a lot of SaaS subscriptions, and eventually you as the, let's say, the upstream vendor or a seller, let's call it seller, because you're not a vendor, you're a seller. The upstream seller takes part of the profit if you do it correct. And even one level up, there's also maybe another distributor that takes part of that money flow. Technically, how you do it, how much profit you make on top of, let's say, or based on each purchase of the reseller is up to you. You could also say, hey, for each month that you're using our platform, we just charge you a fixed amount. You pay our cost price, and then whatever profit you make is for you, as long as you keep sending us our monthly, let's say, our monthly fee. It's up to you how to do it. There are ways of possibilities in there. So when we look at those resellers, what is a reseller? A reseller is somebody that, in our platform at least, sits between the provider and the customer. That means we have two types of sales channels. We've got what we call a direct sales channel, which means that we have a vendor. The vendor sells to the provider, to the distributor. Basically, we have here an overlap of terminology. The vendor is always the vendor. The vendor is Microsoft. The vendor is Adobe. The vendor is whatever. And then we've got provider. In our commerce book, the owner of the platform is the provider. From a Connect perspective, the same entity is called the distributor. So however you want to call it, in this deck, we will call it provider, because we're working, this deck is aimed at Cloud Blue Commerce, and provider is the commerce term for that. So what is a direct sales channel? The direct sales channel is fairly simple. The provider sells to direct customers. That means at L0, there are customers in there, and those customers purchase the services that the provider is offering. Purchases services that vendors are selling through that provider, or purchases services that the provider himself has created. And then we've got indirect sales channels. And indirect sales channels is fairly simple. It is where there is at least one layer between the provider and the customer. So there's one reseller layer. There could be more, there could be only one, but that is what we call an indirect sales channel. And any entity between provider and end customers, we call a reseller account. There might be L1 resellers, there might be L2 resellers, L3, L4, however you want, but they're all called resellers. For logic, either we mention that it's an L1 or an L2 or an L3, or that it's a sub reseller. When people talk about a sub reseller, in most cases, that is either an L2 or an L3. So what do we have? We've got an architecture here. Cloud Blue Commerce supports a multi-level reseller schema. So all resellers can expand their sales network again by reselling their reseller status package. Be aware that this is facilitated by the provider. If the provider does not facilitate, this L1 reseller can try whatever he wants. And I will show you when we're looking at onboarding a reseller. That whole mechanism where you manage the fact whether or not a reseller can have sub-resellers. But in theory, from our perspective, the platform is completely ready to have L1 resellers available to their sub channels. In this case, there's an L1 reseller and an L2 reseller. And we call that a reseller who purchases services from a provider. We call them L1s. They're part of the direct sales channel of a provider, meaning that they, L1, buys directly from the provider, just like customers who are at the same level, right? And of course, we also have the capability of setting up indirect relationship. The L2 reseller in this case is an indirect relationship with the provider. From my perspective, the terminology direct relationship and indirect relationship cannot be used without saying in relationship to whom. Like from an L1 perspective, the L2 reseller has a direct relationship with the L1 reseller because L2 buys directly from L1. So you always have to mention as opposed to a direct relationship to the provider, direct relationship to L1 reseller, indirect relationship to the provider. In this image, there is no indirect relationship when it comes to at least the entities in commerce, as opposed to L1, because there is nothing there. The vendor-provider relationship is a different story. We don't want to talk about that here at this point. First of all, because that is managed for 99% in Connect nowadays. And that is a different scenario. There we have direct relationship and syndication. So what can we do? There are efficient facilities for vendors to support reseller business operations. And what I would prefer to talk about is for providers to support reseller business operations. By building networks of resellers, one can solidify their control over many market segments that would otherwise be out of reach. The idea behind it is, of course, I, as a provider, have a platform, and my main focus is on, let's say, the just sub-enterprise market segment, meaning the larger customers. And those larger customers come to me, and the smaller customers think that we're only doing business with those larger enterprises and they are not worth our attention or whatever. So if you would onboard or create yourself an L1 reseller that is aiming directly, I would almost say, more to the small and medium businesses market, maybe even the small office, home office market, you're expanding into a market where you would probably normally not get the sales out of. You can partner with resellers that are already well connected to that type of market. You could create an operational unit, an OpCo, that is starting to aim at that market if you don't want to have your money go into somebody else's pockets. So there are all kinds of possibilities. Besides that, we also have things we call operating units. And here you see little flags because most of the time we see operating units being created because of selling in different countries. The reason for that could be simple autonomy of those operating units. An alternative could also be that, or an alternate reason could be that these operating units are selling in different currencies. Because as of, let's say, the basis of our platform, each seller on the platform has one key currency that he sells in. That currency is not changeable. We are working on multi-currency at the moment, but still, when you onboard a reseller, that currency, that reseller will have to select what his preferred currency will be. So that's why we see the flags here. What is the difference between a reseller and an operating unit? The key difference is operating units are part of the same company as the provider. And because of that, there is no billing relationship between the provider and the operating unit, because it's the same, let's say, it's the same wallet where the money goes in. Only thing is in Denmark, that money goes into there in Danish crowns, and in Spain, that money goes in there through euros. But it's the same pocket that pockets the money. Whereas L1 and L2 resellers, or the word reseller in general, has to do with, let's say, a competitive reseller. It's a different company that just buys from you in wholesale. And to be honest, whether it's an OpCo or a reseller, I love it when resellers are doing great. Why? Because some people think, hey, but they're competitors. Well, as long as those resellers are on my platform, they are responsible for the communication with their customers. They are responsible for collecting the money with those customers. They are responsible for at least the first level of support to those customers. And I get my piece of the pie. I just bill those resellers every month with every single subscription that they have running towards their end customers. So the more successful they are, the more money I pocket every month without doing anything for it. I don't have to sell to those customers. I don't have to support those customers. I don't have to chase those customers for money. That's all up to the reseller. So how does it work when it comes to money? Well, of course, we've got that trickle-down economy here. Let's say we've got an end customer that pays €5 for a subscription on a monthly basis. That means that the reseller L2 has a revenue of €5 for that customer. Of course, that reseller, that L2 reseller, buys that product from the L1 reseller. So there is a cost to it for the L2 reseller. In this case, that cost is $4.50. That means that the profit, or maybe I should say margin, that the cost that reseller makes is 50 cents. I would call it margin because it's not profit, because there are personnel costs, etc., that go out of that as well. But if the cost for L2 reseller is $4.50, it means that for L1 reseller, it is a revenue again. L1 reseller decided that they want to sell for $4.50 while they buy for $3.50, meaning that the L1 reseller now makes a more for something they don't do work for. Let's be honest. They get a €1 profit on that. And then from a provider perspective inside the platform, there is a revenue of $3.50. You don't see a cost here. Why not? Well, you can put cost into the platform, but the platform is not responsible for handling that cost or handling that payment. Whereas for the resellers and for end customers, the platform is responsible for invoicing, etc., etc. So that is why we don't put cost on this slide. We know that with Connect and with the new rating engine, we can put in an MSRP, we can put in a cost, price, etc., etc. The only difference is that the platform Cloud BlueCommerce is not responsible for paying the vendor. That means that from this flow perspective, it's not really relevant to discuss cost for the provider. We know it's there, but that payment and that invoicing happens outside of Cloud BlueCommerce. So that's why it's not in here. So CB SaaS is taking the complexity out of service or as something as a service world. For example, for pay-as-you-go services, CloudBlue receives from the vendor a charge based on how much the end customer will pay or how much the costs are for that distributor or provider, and then adds a margin on top of that, etc. So it will look something like this, where, of course, the channel reseller, and this is, of course, that same, let's go back here, this same story, right? We've got a vendor and an end customer. And what happens between here, there is a difference of, let's say, three bills. That's what we see here, right? And how that is shared, we don't know. The end customer to the vendor would be 2 or 3 bills, where maybe the channel reseller that makes sure that the end customer has an indirect relationship with a service provider. They charge 1 bill, the service provider gets 1, and then the rest goes through to the vendor. But from a Cloud BlueCommerce perspective, that part is not showing. So of the 3, let me get a pen here. These 2 are going towards the service provider. Oh no, sorry, it's wrong. It's not those 3. Let me get it out. These 2 will go to the service provider, and that one will go as a cost to the end customer. So the revenue goes to the channel reseller. What happens with this money? How much stays in the pocket of the service provider? We don't know at this point. we can set up a couple of those things in what we call the price manager, where we can set margins of specific products. What is the total margin a customer makes? What is your margin there? This, of course, would also depend on where you are in the, let's say, in the hierarchy. Since this is an account 1,000,004, this is typically a reseller account where this is set up. And of course, we have what we would almost call a credit report for each reseller. In the CloudBlue platform, there is an account status section that indicates whether a credit account is open or closed, as well as your payment history at the time of the last update. This sounds almost like a customer. Well, like I said, you are a customer as a reseller. You are only a customer with extra privileges. You're allowed to sell. That's the only difference between you as a reseller and you as an end customer. So how would that work? Well, there are a couple of important things in this whole scenario, and how you look at it depends on the numbers you will see. And that sounds a little bit weird, but I will explain to that a little bit later, the moment I'm going to show you a screenshot and I'm going into the platform for a demonstration. But there are three financial metrics. The first one is the reseller's balance. Basically, it shows how much money the reseller has available on their account and can spend on purchasing services from the provider. And why is that important? Because to protect himself, the provider, of course, wants to make sure that you are not doing, as a reseller, you're not doing very crazy things that might end you up at the end of the month in not being capable of, let's say, paying the bill towards the provider, the distributor. That also means that if my customer buys something, you as a reseller need to have enough credit in your account to make sure that it can be provisioned. And that is checked time and time and time again. That means that your credit limit or your credit needs to be enough all the time. That also means that you might want to set what we call automatic payments and automatic top-up options. Automatic top-up options is the configuration so that if your reseller balance drops below a certain threshold, that you automatically make a payment with an automated payment method, credit card, transfer, whatever, but to make sure that if the next customer buys, that he can still be provisioned, that those services can still be provisioned. That's a very important thing, because even though the customer pays the reseller maybe directly using credit card, the system, and that is a credit card company is part of that system, does not automatically pay me as a provider. We do that in most cases for resellers at the end of the month with a single invoice. So it might be a good idea to think about how much credit do we give our resellers. And this is an important question to ask for every single entity that wants to have resellers. So even if you're L2 and you are in discussion with a customer that is contemplating becoming a reseller on your at your level, make sure that you think about how much this reseller is going to do on a monthly basis, what their plan is about that, and how much eventually they will need as a reseller balance so that their customers can keep buying. Of course, part of this is the credit limit. The credit limit is, of course, the credit a reseller gives for sales. And from a customer perspective, it goes slowly because customers don't buy all the time, right? They buy a subscription, maybe they change it, And then there's a long period where nothing happens, only the monthly recurring invoicing. But from a reseller perspective, if that reseller wants to be successful or is successful, what you see is that there is a purchase regularly from their customers. They onboard new customers, et cetera, et cetera. That means that that credit limit has to be higher. And then there is something that's called not invoiced purchases. Not invoiced purchases are the subscriptions or the change orders and sales orders that customers made, where these customers have what we call consolidated invoicing, or where they have that monthly invoice with everything on it. The per account billing customers. So my first subscription I pay, and then I'm paying after that, I'm paying only once a month for everything I do in between. So if I made a second purchase, that purchase is not invoiced yet. That purchase will be invoiced in my next billing run. So those numbers you will see on the not invoiced purchases field. So where do I see this and what do I find there? Well, the first one, I've got my balance, my available balance and my current balance, my available credit limit. So this is probably a prepaid amount because there is no credit limit available at this point. We also see the number of not invoiced purchases here. And here we see the list of the orders based on which those not invoiced purchases are calculated. So here I see sales orders, here I see change orders, etc., renewal orders that have not been invoiced yet. What I see here is the view from within a reseller. So my available balance is £2,760. If I go to my demonstration platform and let me log in, let me first go do this as provider, because most of my demonstrations today I will do from a sub reseller, because there I can create resellers, I can create service plans without bothering other people. So that's why you will see me toggle between demos.cloudblue.com, which is the root of the environment. This is the provider, and you will see me log in eric.demos.cloudblue.com, which is my personal reseller. So if I go and use, for instance, the CloudBlue Demo Europe, let me go to resellers in billing and resellers in billing that I see here. There is an there is a reseller activity tab where I see the activity from, let's say, a provider perspective. Here you see that the non-invoiced purchases are minus 11,979.51. I see that the current balance is 0, that payments processed through the provider, we're going to talk about that a little bit later, are 0, available credit limit is 0, etc. If I look at the payments, no, documents, where is it? Payments, documents. There is a fraud check here of $1. And these are the payment methods. So here's my reseller activity. Let me first look now at the customer vision of this. I have my dashboard here where it says all invoices are paid. If I go in there, I see invoice history, orders, unpaid, etc. But what is more important is that when I go to my account, there is that account status option, and I will see the same numbers there where I see not invoiced purchases, and I see that there is a subscription that is provisioned, and those are billing orders, right? So here are all those orders that still need to be invoiced to our customers. In this case, we have 11,000 outstanding invoices towards our customers. And to be honest, if you look at the numbers here, that's quite a lot because all those numbers are fairly small. Here's a big one. But that is what non-invoiced purchases are. These are provisioned. Of course, it's a billing order, so there isn't that much. At the end of the month, this page should go blank for now, and then we have other billing orders that come up for the next billing period. In this case, automatic payments are enabled, which means that when the provider bills the reseller will automatically pay. As far as I know, my account that I'm working with is a sub reseller of the Demo EU reseller. And I think it is an L3 mine. No, this is the one. There we are. My account is 1,844,000. If I look at the documents that I have, there's nothing there yet. My reseller activity is there. There are $32 of not invoiced purchases. And if I would log in to this account and I go to my account session, account status, come on, here we have it. It's that same 32. Here, I see that my available balance is this amount. Why? Because my available credit limit was 30,000. And if I do my math correct, 30,000 minus 32 is 29,968 euros. This one is still provisioning. There is an issue with that one, so I should cancel this order. But that is where I can see how things are happening. I, as a reseller, can see that, but my upstream reseller, in this case, my L1 reseller, is able to see the same thing. Here, we can set those top-up options. If I zoom out, let's put this all on a page. Come on, I should be able to edit this. As a reseller, let me go to my, here we can set automatic payments, yeah. The only thing I can do is I can set my automatic payment here. There is, for that top-up option, there is just one way to do it. You have to go to the classic panel, and in billing, you will find the same information under the My Reseller Status option in the menu, where I can edit my top-up options. And there are a couple. I can define which payment method to use, credit card, PayPal, whatever method there is. I can set the threshold. So if my balance drops below this amount, I want you to start topping up. And then how much do you want me to top up? I can do $100, $1,000, $10,000, depending on what you think is needed. But you could also specify that, hey, if I drop below a certain threshold, let's say in my case, 10,000, I want you to just create a top up for the amount that the last customer just bought and keep it that way. It's up to you. The only thing that I don't understand is in this whole screen is this one, Boolean. For me, Boolean is indeed a checkbox that goes on and off. I'm not sure what it does here. I have asked the person in charge of this platform. And he hasn't answered yet. I don't know what this setting here means, but for the rest, this is what I do. Default payment method. I have my default payment method for anything that that my own recurring payments do, but I can use a different payment method for top up. Of course, I can also use the default payment method for that, but let's say my my customers are very busy this month. Normally, I pay using my credit card. I want my top up to happen somewhere else from my bank account or whatever, so that I'm making sure that my credit card at the end of the month still has enough credit to pay the regular payment method. That also means that at the end of my month, my not invoiced purchases, etc., will go back to zero, which means that my available balance initially, the beginning of the month, will be again the 30,000 that I have here. So reseller control panels, quickly, I don't think there's a lot to talk about because we have two control panels for resellers. Key one is UX1. What is UX1 for? From our perspective, daily operations. Manage my account, manage my customers, manage sales channels, manage your marketplace, manage and sell, basically. What is the classic panel for? We call it advanced configurations. Manage accounts, manage your own account. Of course, that can happen. I mean, we used to have classic panel at some point as the sole control panel. So it would be weird if you could not manage your account there. We can still manage customers and their subscriptions up to a certain point. What do I mean with up to a certain point? I mean with that if your products, if your service plans are coming from Product Lifecycle Manager, you have imported that PPR file and that created your service plans. That one should only be able to manage through UX1 for resellers. UX1 has a link with PLM, has a link with the rating engine, the new rating engine, where the classic panel doesn't have all that. We're gradually trying to move away from that monolithic big thing called billing that is managed by the classic panel, etc. So we're not going to invest a lot of time in making those connections to PLM, to the rating engine. So go to UX1. And there are a couple of things, advanced system configurations, like what I just showed you. As a reseller, if I want to set up a top-up account or a top-up option, you have to go to the classic panel. I can set up my payment methods, I can set up a lot, but I cannot set my top-up amount for through UX1. Of course, you can switch, you can toggle between the two. On top here, sorry, let me show you the slide that I'm showing myself. You can toggle between the two. You can go from classic panel to UX1 and back. There's nothing strange there. And then the reseller operations. The reseller operations is the last part that I will do before the first break. And after that first break, we will talk about onboarding a reseller. So what are reseller operations? Well, the first thing we can do is reseller account management. Reseller account management allows resellers to add new users, define payment methods, etc., etc. Adding new users and adding new accounts, those are two different things, right? Reseller account management. I'm working on my own environment. Let me go back to UX1. As a reseller, I have my own set of users, and my set of users can be added here. To be honest, from a perspective of setting the right roles, I would personally still rely on the classic panel, and I will show you in a second why and how. Let me show you. If I add a new user, what I have here is I have a first name, a last name, an email address. This will be the login for the user. And then I want to create a staff member. A staff member role that I want to add, there are 3 available in my scenario because I created this one last Friday for the other group as a demonstration. And then I can add address lines and I can send an activation mail to users, yes or no. One thing that you might be missing here is a password field, and that's exactly what we want to do. We don't want to set a password. Why not? Because if we set a password and the customer or the user does not change it, we are liable, right? So we would say, okay, give the correct email address here. They come to the login page, they click forgot my password, they reset their password into something they only know, and they're ready to go. And you can honestly say that you haven't got a clue what their password is. But what is bothering me here is this line here. Assign staff member roles to users, and you see this is a page that does not have any follow-up pages. So what staff member roles are we talking about here? Let me go to the classic panel for that, because that is where we do security, right? If I go to system settings, security, you will see those 3 roles: staff member defaults, my first demo role, and account administrator. Those were the 3 roles you saw. So that means that in UX1, when I create a new user, a new colleague, I can only hand out operations roles. So what billing role will they get? Well, in this case, they will get the full access role, meaning that in billing, if they have access to the classic panel, they can go in and break everything. So that is for me the reason to decide to, at least for users that will have operations as well as billing functionality. In my case, that means if I have users that need to be able to go to the classic panel, I want to create those users in the classic panel as well. Because in that case, if I create a new user, I am able to assign billing roles, and I am able to assign service management roles, which is operations roles, in one go. So why is it so important for me that these people need to have access to the classic panel? Let me go back to operations and look into those roles. Let me go to security, or let's look at the privileges. Maybe that's a better thing. Because a lot of privileges that I can give in operations are related to UX1. Here we see some UX1 stuff. UX1 stuff. UX1. I'm not even going to look at those specific use cases, but UX1. So if this person only has access to the UX1 environment, there is nothing to worry about if I created my role correct. But how can I then prevent this user to go to classic panel? Well, even that is foreseen. We have a privilege here that says classic panel access. If I don't have that in UX1, oh, I don't have UX1 open anywhere. Okay, let me quickly go to UX1. In UX1, if I don't have this privilege, this button, or if I go to the classic UX, this button will not be present. There will be an admin demo, there will be a help, this information is there, but the classic panel button is not there. So make sure that people who, let's say sales, that would need access to the marketplace there to create their customers, etc., there, and manage the subscriptions of their customers, customer success managers maybe, that they have access to UX1, set their role up correct in operations, and make sure they don't have classic panel access. In that case, it doesn't matter that they are a full admin in billing. So this is what I just talked about, those roles. I can create my own roles. The moment I do that, that role appears in this list. This is the, I would almost say, the default view in UX1 if you have a new platform, a clean platform that, or a new, a clean platform that only has the standard roles. UX1 interface allows resellers to create end customer accounts as well. In two places, I can go to customers, add a new customer there, or I can go to the marketplace and using the flow of the marketplace, add a new customer on the fly. So it depends on how you want to do this. I go to my marketplace, select the product. Next step is to whom do you want to sell this? I could select an existing customer like here, or I can add a new one. And it shows me the screens that I need to be seen. However, on the, let's say, on the shopping cart page first, because as you see, this is page 2. On the shopping cart page, the first thing you will see is that you want to either make a purchase, a direct purchase, or that you want to create a quote for a customer. If I select to create a quote, there are two things that I can do. I can save the cart for an existing customer. The advantage is that they will see it in their marketplace here in this little star. There is all of a sudden there's a 1. If they click it, they get on the page where the quotes are shared, and they can open that quote or immediately place the order based on that quote. If it's a quote for, let's say, a customer that doesn't have an account yet and you want to send it to them, I can also create a PDF with a validity, end date of that quote, etc., and create that in PDF format so we can send it to that customer. The downside is that the review button that I have here will bring them to the platform where they are expected to log in. So in most cases, even this one is done for existing customers only. So we discussed this one already. We've got quotes. And then, as this is the customer's view, right? There is the marketplace there where we see place an order on this quote. We also have an overview of what the system is doing. How many active subscriptions are there? The total revenue of my vendor on a per vendor scenario. Distribution per service plan. So what are the successful service plans? What are the ones that don't work for us, obviously? And where can you find that? Well, there is a account overview or analytics option where part of that is reporting and data export to get your billing files out of the system, but there's also an account overview page. If I look at that one in my Demo Europe page, if I go to UX1 there's an analytics option there. And in my account overview, I can see what is there. Skip. So I see the top service plans, in this case, product D demo. The top vendors is Microsoft. There are some revenue pages, the active customers, active subscriptions going up, etc., etc. You see that this platform started somewhere in June 2023. If I look at this same information in my environment, you will see that in analytics, there is hardly anything interesting. Account overview. I don't have top service plans yet. I don't have top vendors because I didn't sell anything yet. Of course, we also have the UX1 marketplace. We already talked about that in the last session, which was already a long time ago, last Tuesday. But it is a digital product catalog to sell. And one of the things that you can do as a reseller in this case is not only purchase cloud services for customers or sub resellers, but you can also purchase cloud services for your own use, right? Why would you buy Office 365 at retail price if you can get it at wholesale price? And of course, I can resell cloud services that I don't have a deal with because I'm going to resell from my, let's say, provider or upstream reseller. How would that look? Well, a reseller can configure a marketplace. In the reseller control panel, there is a sales channels option for that one. They can look at reseller partners or end customers. Of course, the provider can set up similar things, and the provider has 3 options there. The reseller has 2. Provider has reseller marketplace, end customer marketplace, but also own marketplace. And the resellers have obviously just the reseller marketplace and the end customer marketplace. Also, when you go to homepage, service plans, and pages, you will see only 2 tabs if you're a reseller. You will see 3 tabs if you're a provider. A key thing is this one. Whose catalog are you selling? Are you selling the, let's say, upstream resellers catalog, meaning that you cannot add content? You cannot add your own, let's say, managed services product that you want to sell on top of other subscriptions. You cannot. It's a key thing that you are just a value-added reseller. Nothing is added. However, if you get this option from your upstream reseller or provider in this case, you can build whatever you want. It's for me that this is, I would almost say, the most important choice when you're configuring those marketplaces. In this case, we're looking at the end customer marketplace. That's the highlighted one. But it's a key thing that what happens here, of course, is something that can make or break you as a reseller. Another thing you can do is you can set a public mode. Public mode means that we have a marketplace that is not bound to a customer control panel, meaning that a customer does not need to be logged in to see your product. There is the possibility to add a sign-up link so that a customer gets through a sign-up form where he puts in all his details and then he places an order. He will onboard, I would almost say, in one automatic flow. Be aware that if you do that sign-up form, that we do not do validation of that data. So if you don't want that, I would say the public mode marketplace can be there, but you have to make sure that people register with you first before they can actually make a purchase. They should be able to see what you're offering and maybe even show the prices based on which you're offering those products. But eventually, sign up needs to be something that might require validation, might require extra steps of authorization to be on the platform, or that there are other requirements that you need to have. In that case, the sign-up form that we have is not enough, because it will just automatically create the customer and allow that customer to place a purchase, to place an order. Preview options and customization. I did that in the previous scenario. We have our banners, we've got our promoted services, we've got the detailed list. We discussed that. What is important is that managing this marketplace is completely done with privileges in operations. So you can create a role, marketplace admin, and you can specify, I would say give that admin all rights to the all permissions, all privileges to the marketplace, even though there might not be everything at this point, like PSA integration. If you don't have PSA integration yet, they don't need that privilege, but if it comes in the future, it's already good to have handed it to somebody. This is something that maybe your sales might want. Adjust the margin for an end customer. If you have a very good customer and sales wants to sell them something with a little discount, make sure that they can do it. It's a privilege. If they do not have this privilege, the margins are set by the person that created the marketplace, that created the account, and your sales is basically very limited in what they can do and offer to their end customers. So the reseller catalog, who does management of the catalog? Well, I would say the reseller should be able to create their own portfolio. Of course, part of that will come from a layer up, but part of that, or at least the display, will be something that the reseller would want to do. Why? For me, it's simple. The reseller knows his customers, so they know what their customers are going to request. I see a hand up. Ana Paula, tell me.
Hello, it's just to tell you that it seems that the VDI left the meeting. It means that it's not transcripting anymore, isn't it? I think we have a transcription problem here because VDI left the meeting.
Let me see in the chat.
And I have a question for in the chat too, but
let me see in the participants, people. I don't see indeed the AI component anymore. Where did it leave? Read AI joined at 5 minutes before the training.
It's been like 8 to 9 minutes that it left, I think.
Yeah, I don't see it even leave here. On the other hand,
I have it here, like VDI meeting notes.
I do have the transcript, though. I do have the transcript. That one runs.
Okay. Okay, then.
Perfect. All right.
And then there's my question.
Go ahead.
In the chat.
Is it only, the quote feature is only for version 21? If I'm correct, it's also available in version 20.5, but I'm not 100% certain about that. I think it's more related to which version of the marketplace you're running. And as far as I know, the most recent version for 20.5 did have that feature. Let me quickly go to the documentation. The old documentation for 20.5. Let's see, marketplace. Yep. It doesn't find anything if you make typos. Reseller's guide. Let me see, deal
And the quotes
pricing here.
also work only for resellers, is that it? Because it should work for providers too, right?
No, it's a reseller only thing.
I cannot
And that
I
has
cannot
to
give a
do with
quote
the
for my
fact that
customer if I'm not a reseller.
the thing is that it was created with the thought in mind that as a provider, and that is from the last 3, 4, 5 years, that providers do not have, and it's part of a changed best practice, that providers don't have direct customers, that any customer they have from a entity perspective should be in a dedicated L1 environment. So you have sales working in the L1 and you've got the tech staff working at L0. That's where it comes from, with that best semi new best practice in mind.
Yeah, but it's weird because I would say that 80 to 9% of 90% of your customers worldwide are,
No,
direct sellers.
not anymore. That's the problem. That's the problem. And since you started with a platform before this best practice was there, in your case it might be the case. But any platform that we have deployed since the last couple of years, we always create an L1 for the business to run and an L0 for the admins to run. That way there is a separation between not only business and tech, but I can, with almost a safe heart, dedicate and delegate full admin to my reseller or to my business team. Whereas from a technical perspective, they cannot break anything because they don't have access to that level. That's the thought behind it. And with that in
But in
mind,
the last
we
2
decided
years,
that a marketplace at provider level does not automatically need that quote feature. If you want it, I would say set up a PFR, because I can see that for your case it's a logical decision to have it at provider level. But I'm just telling you what the thought behind our previous decisions has been.
okay. And is it available for 25?
20.5, there we are. Preparing quotes. I'm in the 20.5 documentation. There we are.
So my resellers should be able to do so. Okay, thank you.
Yep. All right. I broke something here. Cool. Let me go back to the deck. So when we're looking at a catalog, a reseller product catalog, there are 4 entities that we have to look into when you look into that marketplace. We've got products, we've got service plans. A product is an SKU or is a resource rate. The service plan is, of course, the sellable thing. And then we have product pages and category pages. When a reseller receives the catalog from a provider by delegating plans, or they create their own offerings based on their own products, it deals with the first 2 objects. So we have products, service plans. PLM is, let's say, the heart of that part. When it comes to the publication of a catalog to marketplaces, resellers deal with product pages and category pages. So what are those for? As I said, a product is a service, a physical item, accounting item that has its own identifier MPN. In, let's say, commerce terms, we're talking about resource rates here. And in PLM, you can manually create your own products that are not, let's say, that are not coming from a Connect product, but you want to, let's say, set up managed services. You can sell that through PLM products where you create your own product, where in that case, either you can ask commerce to, let's say, make up one. It will always look like a GUID, or you can put in your own MPN if you want to, if that's more logical. And the second step in that scenario is that you will create a new product line. What is a product line? A product line is nothing more than a service template. To be honest, I'm not sure why we decided to completely diverge from our old terminology where we had resources, where we had service templates, and then on top of that, we created service plans, because the service plans are still there, even in Product Lifecycle Manager. But I wasn't there when the decision was made. I would have, well, be very verbal about the fact that now we have to explain that a service template is the same thing as a product line, and that a product is a resource. So that's how it works. Of course, if I create there we go. If I create something that would require 2 resources or 3 resources to be there in the same product line, in the same service template, the first thing that I create with my own product is I add a new product line, where at the bottom I give the name of that product line. After that, I can, using that pull down menu, create new products, new resources into that product line. The advantage of PLM, as opposed to the old classic panel method of doing this, is that in the classic panel, I had to manually create resource 1, resource 2, resource 3, resource 4, then go to service templates, add specific items, also add the meta information like a tenant. And in PLM, all those, let's say, extra steps are not needed anymore. But it's still just a service template. So the next step is create that service plan. And guess what? A service plan created in Product Lifecycle Manager requires a PPR file. A PPR file that you have to build yourself, upload it for that specific product. Of course, you can download part of that, but you need to still go in and create a couple of tabs, because the only thing you get back at that point is the resources tab. You have to create the service plans tab, you have to create the resource rates tab, and you have to at least create the subscription periods tab. And then you can upload it and you have your product in there. So when we create a product, we see what the products in the plan are. Guess what? Again, this is not a product as in Microsoft Office 365. This is a product as in a resource, as in Enterprise E5 license. That's something to think about. Besides that, of course, we see subscription periods on this page in Product Lifecycle Manager. And when you have created delegated plans and you delegate those plans to a reseller, you will not see those plans in the portfolio page. Let me show you that. Let me go to, where are we? Portfolio. Here you see my products, I see my plans, I see my product lines. It looks like I'm selling nothing here, right? Which is weird because I'm a reseller and I can sell. Look at what I can do. I can go to Marketplace and I see that Azure is there. I see that Office 365 is there, etc., etc. Why is that? Well, the plans that I see in my portfolio products, the plans and the products that I see here, are the ones that I would own. So if I would add a product, create my own, let's say product 1. I can add an icon. This is an in-house product, and I'm creating a new product line, demo line, create. Oh, I don't care. Put something there. Oh, wow. Ah, I see. This is interesting. Okay, I'm going to tell you about that later. remember this error. Remember this error. Let me see if I can quickly fix it. Where am I? Oh, this is mine. Let me go to my upstream reseller. Demo Europe. I go to this reseller. And I should have Eric there somewhere. Let's search for Eric. Search. Here we have it. Oh, sorry. I need to go to billing. I thought I was in billing already. Resellers. Search for Eric. This is a nice one. I wish I did this earlier. My subscriptions. I'm only subscribed to the L2 reseller plan. So that sounds like, okay, I'm a reseller, that's it. Well, that's not entirely true. And let me go a couple of steps forward. We're going to dive into this slide a little bit more, but subscribe a reseller to the in-house service plan. If I don't have the in-house service plan, it means that I cannot create in-house products. So what I was trying to do, and let me quickly go back there because I don't want you to read the rest yet. What I was trying to do, I cannot do it. So what I need to do first is I need to have that service plan. In-house products for resellers. This is the one that I need. So 181, let me quickly show you what is in service plan 181. Nothing. Cool. Let me search. Oh, weird. In-house products for resellers. Oh, wait, I'm too high at this moment. I need to go here and to the classic panel there. Here I can find a 181 plan. Here it is. So what do I find in there? It is based on service template number 4, in-house products for reseller, resource rates, in-house products, included amount 100. From my perspective, that means that I can only create 100 in-house products. So I'm not sure if you would want to limit this, but that's up to you. But I need a resource. I need to have this resource to create my first in-house product. So that means that I have to subscribe Eric's reseller, to that service plan. So I have to place an order for plan 181, not TMF, 181. This one for 10 years. I like that. I don't need a domain name. I don't need a PO number for this. So I'm going to place my order. Let's refresh. It's in the new status. So I need to open the order for it to provision because of the workflow there. It's completed. So let me go back to my UX1. Let's add a product again. So this is in-house 1. There's my MPN. I can put in something, whatever I want. I have to have a product description here, and this is In-house line 1, create. Let's get rid of this. It does not seem to work. Do I need to log out and log in again? Wouldn't be the first time. Portfolio, products, add product. Let me first go here. No, sorry, I need to go to operations. 13, okay. Go back to UX1. Portfolio. Add a new product. In-house, new product line, line 1. That looks better. If I go to provider level, hoping that I'm still logged in. Active tasks. Mail collecting, okay. Messaging is okay. Why are you refusing to do this? Looks like there's an issue with the platform.
There
Because
was an error message that you refreshed before you could read. There was a red. Yeah.
But it's not about the rights anymore. So there is something definitely wrong with the platform itself.
I got to say to you, this is something that happens from time to time. It happens
Yeah.
for us too. It's just
Yeah,
that
it's
when you
annoying.
create like 3 or 4, the second you need to go really slow. Otherwise, it goes like it has SQL error or something. It shows an
Yeah,
SQL
I
error.
realize that. But it's a
Yeah.
shame I cannot demonstrate this. Let me see, because it throws another error than it did
I think
before.
it's a bug that, to be honest, VH. I think it's a bug because we have this here too. And it's not always. It depends on the speed of the product creation.
Yep.
You need to write everything very slowly, otherwise it goes an error. I don't know why.
Let's do
It cannot be
units.
fast.
In-house products, new product line, line 1. So we've got everything filled out. There should not be an error. Let's try this again. On the products pages, it should show up. However, it doesn't. I don't like this. User added. I should see something here as well.
Yeah. Weird.
I'm going to verify if there is something wrong with the platform, but what I wanted to show you, can I do it? Let me go there. Platform. I want to use that one. I'm going to connect to a VPN, so I will be back in a second because I need a VPN for the next. Oh, sorry. Not for the next, but for this platform. There we go. I'm back. Let's go to demo.aks. This is another demonstration platform. Let me go to a reseller. Wow. Ah, this platform even has bigger issues, so I'm not even going to attempt it. The operation you are trying to perform requires interaction with a component which is presently unavailable. I just clicked resellers.
Ouch.
This one is broken. Last option. I'm not sure if everything is set up on this one. So I'm not 100% confident that I can do the demonstration here. Portfolio. This one is in debug mode, which is good, but I only have prices here. So no, I cannot sadly do the demonstration. What I wanted to show you is that the moment I create that, canceling state, line 1 could not be created while locking tuple in relation BM resource. Cool.
Yep.
Let me quickly make a screenshot of this one so I can report it.
Yeah, this is a database issue.
Yeah.
As
All
I
right.
told you, there is something off with this page. From time to time, this kind of thing happens. There's some sort of bug in this feature.
Or they have locked down something at our scenario that some of the info or some of the tables are not writable. Okay, let's stop this demonstration. What I wanted to show you is that when I have a product line here, that it would link to a service template at this level. I cannot do that one now, which is sad, but that's the only thing. But what I wanted to show you with an in-house product is that it does not only create the resource in that template, but there is a tenant and an application resource in there as well. Just like any APS-based service template, it has a tenant, it has the application, and then you have the actual resources. The tenant, we don't need to create because we create a new product line. The system knows, oh, that means there needs to be a tenant in there. There also needs to be an application in there. Otherwise, it won't show on the customer's control panel. I wanted to show you that. Now you have to take my word for that. I hope you trust me enough by now to do that. I don't see the plans that I get delegated because that's where it all started in the demonstration, right? I don't see any plans in my portfolio. I don't see any product lines in my portfolio. However, the moment I'm going to my sales channels page and I go to the list of service plans, I see that there are a lot of service plans. How come? Well, since these are delegated plans, my upstream reseller gave them to me. I can only see them here. I can manipulate them here. I can make them hidden. So if you see a hard or a solid I with a slash through it, it means it's not showing, it's invisible, it shows underneath the title as well. That means that nobody will be able to see them in UX1 marketplace. In the reseller marketplace, in this case, because that was the one that I was manipulating. Of course, in the end customer marketplace, I can do the same thing.
But wait, that means that it's a single configuration for all his sellers?
Yes.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah. Wait. I will probably give you in the next module or in the next part. I will show you that it's a little bit more more delicate, and I can do more nuances than this. But let's wait for that part.
Yeah,
let's wait for that.
Yeah.
So, homepage, service plans. What is important is that if I add plans, if I get more plans delegated, I need to import the catalog again, because the marketplace has its own part of database of storage, and that is not an on-the-fly sync. That means that if I make changes to service plans, import catalog. If I add service plans, import catalog. If I, let's say, disable service plans, import the catalog. Otherwise, customers will see it, they try to buy it, and it will still throw an error for them the moment they place that order. But you have to make sure that, of course, that this plan should not be published anymore. In my service plan item, I can set the product pages by going here, creating items, setting overviews, etc. And I can make full pages visible or invisible. And then we've got category pages where in our pages part, we can create a category page, for instance, for Microsoft 365. Again, we can make them visible or invisible if needed. And there is again, a more option where you can customize those product pages if you want to. Up till here, I wanted to go before the first break. So before I move on after the break, I'm going to stop the recording in a second. First question is, of course, do you have questions or not? If you have questions, ask them. If you don't have questions, give me a thumbs up. And since it is 37 now, let's be back at the top of the hour, giving a little bit longer break because it was also a longer stretch of me talking. Going to stop the recording. Let's be back at top of the hour.